So what is cold calling? Cold calling is the action of calling a business or a person directly from a business. Technically, it's before they've expressed interest in wanting to know more or explore other alternatives to what they might be using today. So it's cold because you're calling them out of the blue, so they're not technically a warm lead, someone that perhaps marketing or you as the sales rep have warmed up and nurtured regarding your outreach to them. When it comes to an email or when it comes to a LinkedIn touch point or a message, it's hard to really articulate and personalize it to the extent of what a natural phone call can do for you. Don't be that rep that hits all your KPIs predominantly because of emails, auto emails at that, because it's not going to have the same exact effect as a phone call would. The problem with green BDRs, aka someone that is brand new in a role that has never done cold calling before, is that a lot of the times during their onboarding or during their training, they're taught to just pitch their product up top or pitch why their company is awesome through their value proposition in hopes of hooking whoever's on the other side of the phone. And the issue with that is that it's not tailoring to the prospect's needs or problems or challenges that they might be experiencing within their day-to-day, and so they sound like every other salesperson that's calling them. Another problem with average cold callers is they have a tendency to not be active listening. They're so fixated on getting through their pitch, getting through the 30-second intro, and making it perfect without listening to what the prospect is saying. And lastly, they're self-focused versus customer-focused. So what I mean by that is if it's halfway through the month or halfway through the quarter and you're severely behind your KPIs or your quota, you might have a tendency to just dial for the sake of dialing, just for the, because you're desperate and you're in scarcity mode, versus actually tailoring your calls and personalizing them to the best of your ability to get the most ROI. So I've got 4 basic tips that I think will help out when it comes to cold calling and will enhance the effectiveness of your overall workflow. Key number 1 to enhancing your cold calls: memorize your first 30-second intro. Why I think this is so crucial is that you only get one first impression on every single phone call when you have a live person on the other side. Typically, when it comes to the average cold callers, they might have a 4, if not 6% connection rate, meaning out of all of the phone calls that they make in a day, only about 5 or 6% of them are actually going to pick up their phone call. So what that means is you're only going to have a handful of live conversations, and you don't want to accidentally butcher the intro to your call and then thus losing your prospect and losing the opportunity to land a meeting. So that being said, I'm a big advocate for just knowing your first 30 seconds, eliminating fillers, and having something that you know for a fact gives you a structure to how you're going to start your call. Tip number 2 is know what challenges and problems you're solving for. You might ask the right questions to the wrong people, meaning you might be asking questions that are more tailored to someone that's more of a senior manager, more of an executive for a company, that might be more questions that you should tailor to someone that is an individual contributor or a frontline manager. So make sure that, and this is a pro tip that I tell everyone, is have 2 separate battle cards, if you will, or have 2 separate playbooks. A playbook for how you're going to handle an executive type of conversation versus how you're going to handle a lower level conversation. I categorize, and again, it depends on each company, but an executive in my mind is anybody that's got a director, senior director, VP, or above title. Anybody that's under a senior manager is considered, in my mind, a lower level, someone that's more frontline, managing a team of some sort. So that being said, lower levels versus executives care and prioritize completely different things. So if, let's say in your shoes, you're pitching or you're trying to sell a software of some sort, maybe the angle to a lower level conversation might be about the challenges that they might be experiencing with their features and functionality. Maybe it's very manual, or maybe it's that they don't have something in place and they've got like an Excel sheet that's kind of keeping them, afloat for right now, something that's not going to be automated or streamline their workflows. right? So that might be a pain point for someone that's a lower level because they're in the trenches dealing with the software that you might be wanting to replace. Versus a CTO or a CIO, they're not living in their day-to-day in that software that you're trying to pitch. So they might be thinking higher level initiatives such as reporting, such as things that are going to be helpful for cutting costs. Just be thinking about tailoring your talk track and your discovery questions to the person that you're speaking to on the phone. So you might think, Bree, why am I suddenly only talking to higher ups? Why don't I just prioritize the decision makers and not prioritize or call any of the lower levels, because the lower levels might not necessarily have any influence? That's a great question. Well, again, if you only have a 4 to 6% answer rate overall when it comes to our call block, the likelihood of that 4 to 6% being all decision makers is relatively low. So if you have a really low connection rate or a low answer rate, I'll do an entire teaching topic, different video on how to enhance that a little bit. But a pro tip would be to call lower levels of an organization just to get better insight and information regarding what challenges and what key priorities that the decision makers care about. Next key here, and it's so funny, one of my guys this week actually asked me the same exact question. What do you do when you get so anxious in starting a call blitz and you start to get the butterflies of, oh my gosh, I'm feeling a little anxious? Great question. So to get over that anxiety that you might feel at the very beginning of a call blitz, I call it the 5-second rule. Shout out to Mel Robbins for this one. So what she talks about in her book called the 5-second rule, it's give yourself 5 seconds before you initiate and jump into the task that you might not necessarily want to do. So you literally, before you hop into a call blitz, you might be thinking, oh my gosh, I'm nervous. Oh my gosh, I might sound, weird in front of my colleagues. And especially if you're new, you got all the jitters in you because you're not as experienced. It's all good. Literally just do a count up of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then just dial. The first 5 to 10 calls gets you warmed up. And then after that, it does get relatively easier for the remainder of your call blitz. Key number 4 is commit to 50 minimum calls a day. Guys, I can't tell you how frequently I get asked, Bree, I don't know why I'm not hitting quota. Can you give me insight or help or guidance on how I can hit quota as a BDR or an SDR? Majority of the time, believe it or not, when you jump in and you look at the stats and you look at the key performance indicators, not just from like one day or 1 week, but like for the month or for the previous month, for the last 90 days, a good majority of the time it's that people aren't making enough calls. And so that being said, if you commit to doing 50 dials every single day as a BDR to build up your pipeline, to build up your momentum, to build up the amount of times that for some prospects, their preferred method of communication is a phone call. So in doing so, you're going to get conversations that lead you to meetings or lead you to the right people. 25 in the morning, 25 in the evening. I always tell people to make sure you're calling at the right times. So I'll do another whole teaching video regarding just the proper times of getting a hold of people, but just commit to 50 dials a day. And I can promise you, if you inspect that with your manager, look at your KPIs via your CRM or your sales loft or your outreach, whatever you're using, you're gonna notice some sort of correlation on how to enhance your calls and how to enhance your workflow in doing so. But just keep it basic, keep it simple. 50 dials a day keeps you on pace towards hitting your quotas typically. Follow and subscribe for more business development strategies.